This video is brought to you by Photogenic by BenQ. Please check out this Facebook page for the latest news, videos, and articles about photography and so much more.
And the other thing as well is you should look into an application called Reality Capture. It's from a company called Capturing Reality. It's the most advanced software I've ever seen of photogrammetry. Basically, you just take hundreds of photos of the same object and it literally, I mean, I kid you not, this is real, literally makes a really accurate 3D model out of those photos. You will not use it for 3D, but you will definitely use it for tracking and to help you, and also to use it as a reference. So you can build full geometry. You see all these little dots here? These are all the camera angles. So basically what you do is you have your camera in burst, just keep taking photos around the object, take photos around the object, then you take photos lower, then you take photos higher, and then you take photos on this side. Of course, put the camera on JPEG, because if you put it on RAW, you will never leave the, you'll have like 300 gigs of photos. I mean, I would say a few, like 100, because because you need to kind of, you need to do a 360 around the object, and then you also need to do a 360 a bit higher and a 360 a bit lower. The more information you give him, the better. And so you always need to, of course, have the focal on the same place, so you don't need to change, you don't change the lens. So if you set it with a 24mm, you keep it with a 24mm, and then you just go around the object, and then you also should do a few closer ones, a few more far away ones. The more photos you give him, the better, but of course it's going to take forever to process. It could take hours to do the model, so it could be really dense for nothing, so you have to be careful of that. Moving on now to the digital world, these are the applications I usually tend to use on my iPhone or iPad. I'll go through them one by one, don't worry. So these are all the things that I usually use inside my computer. So, and of course the ones, the custom ones as well, like the compass and the calculator and the torch. And so I'm just going to talk about the ones that I'm not going to talk about. So the ones that I'm not going to talk about is that you should definitely get this one, the 360. 360 basically allows you to just pick up the phone and just do this, and it makes it 360. Lately, I haven't been using it that much because now I have a Theta, like the 360 camera, so I don't use it that much. The other one that I'm not going to talk about is you should always have a Evernote, because you can then write notes and they get synchronized to the cloud. You should always have Time Buddy, because it tells you the time zones of all the world. I also have things so that I can have warnings of what things to do. And I also use the compass, I use the torch to light up stuff. Net analyzer, so you can find Wi-Fi. I always do that, so if I can find the strongest Wi-Fi connection, if you have several to choose from. Speedify is that application that I told you before, where you can bind Wi-Fis together. So if you find the Wi-Fi from Starbucks and the Wi-Fi from the coffee next door, you can bind them together as one, and then it becomes twice as fast. So it's a really nice application to do that. So starting for this, my favorite one, MyMeasures Pro. So MyMeasures Pro basically does this. So whenever I go on set, take a photo, and then I can just write the measurements. Of course, I took the measurements, of course. I took the measurement, and then I can just write on top of them. It has all these little tools to make arrows, to make like, it's really fast for you to just write stuff out using your iPhone. These are all photos from the God only knows on-set supervision that I did. So I did all the measurements like this. I like this one. I have no idea. So I can put the dolly size, I can put all these things. I can also have the lens tilt was this, and then all the distance to the different objects. This was for a Burberry commercial. Also, of course, the incrementor inside the phone. If you don't have one, you can use the iPhone one. The Tolan Assistant is really good because it allows you to actually calculate, the actual, what's the name? The sizes of lenses. Well, I'm repeating a lot of these applications. Actually, maybe don't get this one because it's too expensive. Maybe get instead the next one I'm going to show you. This one is the Light Spectrum Pro. This allows you to just see the temperature on set. So you just use your iPhone, point to it. It gives you the Kelvin of that location, which is really good for you to just check the color temperature. Then I have this, which is the Sunkeeper. Sunkeeper basically allows you to take a photo, and in augmented reality see where the sun is and also see where it will be. So then I can see, okay, that at 5 o'clock the sun is going to be over there, or at 3 o'clock it will be over there. It actually gives you a full augmented reality graphic of the sun, where it's going to land, where it will be opening up. So when you're on set, you know, okay, the sun is actually going to come from there, or the sun is actually going to come from there. It has all those informations. I use this application, PCAM. The PCAM is an application that has a lot of sub-applications. So you basically have depth of field calculators, aperture finders, focal length matchers, triangulation, running time to length. Like if you want to see how a time lapse should look, you can calculate it from here. You can actually see the focal distance. You know, you can triangulate objects. I mean, it's really a helpful application. It has a lot more than this. I also would recommend you to get Artemis Viewfinder. So Artemis Viewfinder basically makes a viewfinder, a virtual viewfinder. And this viewfinder has all my lenses. So you can go in and put your specific lenses. So I have my Canon lenses here. And so through my iPhone, I can see exactly how a framing of a lens of a 300 should look like. You can either see all the photos like this with all the graphics, or it can actually zoom in to those and it can crop in. So then I know, of course, the iPhone minimum is a 19. It can't do lower than that. So if I want to use my 18mm, I can't. But then you see if this is the framing for the 24, this is the crop factor for the 35, the crop factor for the 50, for the 85, and for the 300. You can have it viewed like this, or you can actually have it viewed cropped as well. So this is a really powerful application for you to focus on framing of stuff if you want to know what your lenses are capable of doing. Especially when you're doing the tech scout and you're not with your lenses yet. You're just doing the tech scout to check stuff. If you don't have money to have a real light meter, if you don't have, because they're quite expensive, you can get an iPhone light meter. So if you buy the Lux adapter, which is like 30 quid, you can use your iPhone as a light meter. It's called Luxy. Why do I want to see the values? Because a lot of times I'm doing my own photos for textures, and I'm doing my own photos for references, or my own photos for stitching or for matte paintings. A lot of times VFX supervising is not actually being on the shoot. It's actually taking your own photos for your own matte paintings and for own extensions. Or for example, if you want to do a set extension of a city, you have to go to the city and take all of your photos. So I do the light meter so that I can make sure that I'm pulling the correct exposure on all the photos. That's why. So being a visual effects supervisor, you cannot get away from the fact that you have to be a photographer. There's just no way around it. Knowing photography as a visual effects supervisor is super important, so that you really know how to handle the camera and how to do all these things. I also use this application. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's called VFX Track or something like that. Basically, it's a tracking application you can put on the phone. So when you're photographing a bunch of people with phones, you can put that application installed there, and you have tracking markers on the phone. It also allows you to put a tabber, so if you click on it, it shows up another marker where the finger is. So it's really cool for that. I can check the name. I forgot the name of that. Also, I use Lightroom on my iPhone, so I can actually just take photos and expose them and send them and basically control the photos on my phone. When you're waiting on set, you can always get CineFX for the iPad. Then you can read some visual effects making-offs while you're waiting. So I always take all of my collection of CineFX magazines, all 142 of them, in my iPad. I have an iPad just for that, just to read CineFX. I don't even use it for anything else except to read CineFX magazines. It has all of them. You can buy all of the latest CineFX there. Also, I would recommend a department head application, which allows you to actually make a full database of a shoot, like what you shot during the night, what you shot during the morning. But actually, the best one is this one, is the satellite. I know it looks like misspelled, but it's not misspelled. It's called satellite, I guess, or satellite. I don't know what I don't really know what they're trying to do there. But anyway, this application allows you to do this. This is an on-set report. It's a PDF that you can give the client. This comes out of that application. So this was a commercial that we did at the mill. And we see here that the supervisor was Leo. It was done by the mill. It was used with the Epic Red camera. This was the producer. And then you have the f-stops of all the lenses, and then you have all the shots. And basically, it's an application for you to track all the information. And then it spits out the PDF, like an on-set PDF of everything that you shot. So it's a really good way for you to put your notes in a real thing. Then you can give it to your clients as well. I recently bought this. It's called the Seek Thermal Camera. It's for an iPhone. Basically, you can get temperatures out of your iPhone. It's of course really good to do silly things like this, but it's also really good to try to check certain things. Like imagine if you want to try to find if there is any wall with too much warm, or if the camera is overheating, or just if you want to actually just check if your cabling is not going berserk, just to double check stuff. I am a control freak, so I bought the camera, a thermal camera. These cameras are used for plumbers. They basically check if the plumbing, if the hot water is going through the walls as it should. So that's what it's meant for doing. It's really cheap as well. It's not expensive, 200 and something bucks. So I bought it and I do all sorts of crazy stuff with it. It also tells me what exact temperature it is as well. One of the things that you do on set as well is do grids. As much as you can, try to shoot the lens grids of your lenses separately from the shoot. I recommend you that because then you don't have all the stress of the shoot. So I usually go back with the camera crew because they usually bring back all the lenses to the rental house. So I go back to the rental house and then I shoot all my grids on the rental house. So because they have the camera there, they have all the lenses. We just got back from the set. Then I can shoot the lenses on my quiet time with my own dolly, with someone helping me, and we can just shoot it quietly. But the thing is, like, it's always good for you to not do the camera lenses in the shoot because it's a mess. Because then they're going to put them wrong and they're going to put them tilted and they're not going to put them correctly because they're so stressed. So, it's always good for you to do it separately. And so that's pretty much it for what you do as a tasks visual effects supervisor. You're handling all these things. You have all this equipment. You're handling the tracking, the HDRIs, blue and green screen, making sure it's correct, making sure what cameras was used, make sure what frame rates were used, make sure if the motion control is working, make sure the previs is being used and it's actually matching the previs, otherwise it's a problem for the CG. And of course, making sure if you require extra plates for crowd or massive or all those things. So that's pretty much for this presentation, the first one, which was the equipment. You guys have any questions about that? I tried my best to show every single thing I use on set. I don't think I forgot anything. I'm sure I have something else on my desk that I forgot. But these are the majority of the things that I use. Now, we only have 20 minutes left. So I had all these ones. I had the William Hill TV spot that I was on set. I had the Zlatan TV spot. I had the D-Love, which is a BBC TV spot. Learn in Slow Motion, Baby Teeth, and also I have a bunch of them. So I'm not really sure which one I should show you. I think I'm probably going to show you the most complex one, maybe. And then so I'll show you the BBC one. Because then it's like, maybe if we have time, I can open the other ones. But I really just out of curiosity, I just want to show you this really quickly, this one. Because this one is so funny. So I need to show you this one. So this was a commercial that I supervised for the mill. And it's basically like for the BBC. And it's a puppet. And this is the kind of commercial. We did 5 of them. Yeah, so we did a bunch of them. It was a series. We did one on Christmas as well, which is kind of like that. I'm just gonna scrub a little bit. At the end, he just goes on. He goes outside and goes with the doves. We also did one like this, which is on a company. We did several of them. You get the picture. So this was really tricky because I just wanted to show this really quickly because it was all puppeteered. So we had, of course, to do all the puppeteers. They had to like use this blue. Sorry. So basically, the puppeteers had to use these blue spandex suits so that it could be behind the hair, and of course, so that we could key it. And of course, it was all electronic, and it had a lot of touch-up as well to work. But I just wanted to show you this really quickly because I think it's pretty cool. It's a really nice. It was a really fun commercial to do. So. It's also very creepy sometimes, that thing. Oh, that's me. So basically, we then did the last one, which was on top of a horse, like that. You can check it on my website, but this is pretty much how it was shot. But you guys dressed in green, just in green, they can just disappear like that. So again, when I was on set, I was basically having to do a lot of things, like making sure I knew what lens we were using, making sure we were covering the backgrounds, because think about this. Every time one of these guys on green suits is in front of a background, that's one background that you need to recover because he's not there, right? Like, so you see the hill there, the forest, it's completely gone. So that means I had to take hundreds of photos of the set. I had to take photos of the locations, of like stuff that was behind, stuff that was in front, so that I could like recover all the hills and all the stuff that was being hidden. Not to mention we had to comp in all the explosives because the explosives weren't working on the day. So we had to actually composite in elements of the explosions for the cannons. So this was just an example of on-set supervision. And of course also I wanted to show you because it has the world's smallest horse. So it is a real horse. It's just really tiny and really fun. Look at that. Just look at that. It's like, how cool is that? It's the prettiest horse I've ever seen. Is this the last one? Yeah, it is. Sorry? Yeah, of course. Well, they didn't want to do a CG. They wanted an actual puppet. Yeah. And I don't think it would look like that if it was in CG. It would never look that good. Like it would look like a CG. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here he is. He has. So whenever he wasn't on, like whenever he wasn't doing a shot, they would put him with a tracksuit because he's resting. So they actually did a tracksuit just for him to relax. So here he is, just relaxing, just chilling, and then he would come in and actually with a full suit, and then we would do the whole thing. It was quite fun to do. So that's that one. Then really quickly, I'm just going to show you really quickly Leonard in slow motion, which was a short film I supervised in LA. You should check it out. It's on YouTube and on Vimeo as well. It starts Martin Starr. Back then, Martin Starr wasn't very famous. He's very famous now because of Silicon Valley. But this was a very challenging on-set thing that I did because he is in slow motion, but nothing else is. So he's very slow. So we had to shoot him separately from all the plates. We had to shoot him at 300 frames per second, and then everything else was shot at 24. So it was a really tricky situation. So of course, it all started with the storyboard. Like I was saying, it was starring Martin Starr, which is a bit more famous now. We shot it in 3 days in LA. That's me when I was younger, just a few years ago. So of course, we shot it in several locations. It was a really tricky thing to actually shoot and actually organize. We used the red camera because the red camera allowed us, back then, that camera allowed us to 300 frames per second. And of course, a lot of tracking markers because we had to comp in the slow motion plates into the normal plates. And we couldn't really fit the motion control inside these rooms. It wouldn't really fit. So I had to put a lot of tracking markers on everything. I had to scratch my head a lot of times trying to find out how to do things. We had a lot of fun doing it. There was also a few underwater shots as well. And I'm just going through this really quickly. I also had my computer there on set because I was pre-comping certain shots just to make sure things were working. So these are some of the pre-comps that I did while I was on set just to see if this was going to work, because we kind of didn't know if it was going to work. And so we did a couple of shots like that. So starting with the first one, Leonard running, we had a storyboard, then we went on location. I took a lot of photos of this location and did a huge stitch up of the photos and then put some 3D markers as well. We had a dolly on the other side of the camera. Then we shot him in slow motion at 300 frames per second. Then what we had to do was we had to film him, but then we had to calculate how long the dolly was taking to get to the end. So let's say that the dolly took 10 seconds. Then when we shoot it in normal motion, we had to calculate the 10 seconds times the speed rate of this shoot to actually have a faster move on the other plate. So we shot him, we had a timer, and these are all the plates we had. So we had him in slow motion, we had then a person on the car, we had a guy leaving the car, we had some cars passing through, we had then a 3D track in a point cloud and this was all done out of photos. I had like the stitch up of the shot. And then this was all kind of stitched together. So I had some 3D markers sticked on the wall. And basically, this was our main shot, which we stabilized. And we kind of tracked in everything else. So you're going to see it in a minute, where we basically track in the stuff that was missing. Is this the one that has that? Sorry. No, this is not the one. That's the one So that's the 3D system. And these are all the layers that we had to rotoscope with people being in front and people being in back. Rotoscoping could be a bit forgiving because the background is going to be the same background where that person was. So the edges are going to be the same edges where the people were. So there's no lighting changes. We did have to project and recreate the end again because the client thought it was too long. It took too long for them to get to the end of the shoot. So what we ended up doing, we had to rebuild the end. So this is how it works. We kind of comped in, took the markers, put in the woman inside the building and then inside the car, and then she's there, and then he passes through on the back as well. Same thing goes for the guy on the back as well. The guy on the back, because this was a really long area, we had to make it shorter. So we actually projected in, made the roads shorter, and then put the guy in front, all with a lot of rotoscoping. And then this was the same process for all the shots. Like this one, where he's pouring coffee at 300 frames per second, we basically put some tracking markers on the background because the camera was moving a little bit. So I had some markers on the background, and then we had the plate with the actors at 24 frames per second. We had a stick so that they knew the eye line of where the actor was going to be. And then we brought in Leonard to make the actual thing in slow motion with all the coffee pouring. And then, of course, we comped it all in together. So we also had to actually comp one of the performances of her from another plate. So we comped him in and then just put him all together and clean the whole thing up. Worked quite well. Same kind of technique for this shot where he's talking with the boss. The boss is shot in normal motion. Then we have people going on the office in normal motion. Then, of course, Leonard is in slow motion. Then, of course, we stitch everything together to look like it's seamless. Leonard is always very slow, and he's always late for meetings, by the way, because he's so slow. Same thing goes for the bubble. Like, he has this party trick that he blows balloons, and then the water is in slow motion, because everything he touches is in slow motion as well, by the way. So we use the Phantom camera. So this was a camera that can shoot up to 3,000 frames per second. And so what we did was we I did this shoot. I went outside with the camera and we shot a bunch of balloons with water. And then this is the plates that we've used. Basically, we have the balloon at 2,000 frames per second, the normal balloon at 300 frames per second, and then the plate. Now, and then we, of course, stitched everything together. We had to clean up the rain. We had, of course, to clean up the actual water and put in the new water and put the arm and the other guy and the other water and more water, and that's it. That's how it looks. So I'm going to just stop there because, again, like I said, we're almost running out of time, and I just want to show you a few more other things. I'm going to just show you really quickly this one here as well. So this one was another one that we did. This one was a short film about people that remove their teeth. It's a fashion thing that they want to have teeth as little babies.
Oh my God, look at Eva. She looks different. Younger? Yeah. I don't know. Was it lipo? No. Collagen? Botox? Nope. Okay, I give up. What is it? She got baby teeth. Hi, guys. Hi. That's right, everybody. Baby teeth is the new anti-aging technique that's all the rage in Hollywood this season. Just look at stars like Khloe Kardashian, Hilary Swank, and Renee Zellweger. So why does sun...
You get the picture. You can watch it later. But basically, what we did was we shot this in location. We had a witness camera, always facing the other angle. So we had a main camera, a witness camera, and then we had tracking markers on their faces so that we can actually rebuild the inside mouth and the teeth because they were all modeled. And then we had markers on all of them. And we always had that thing. We always had the main camera and the witness camera. They were all both synchronized. And then basically went into 3D and then tracked everything and then tracked even more all the points and then started building the animation layers of the mouths and removing all the teeth. And then, of course, making in ZBrush all the inner teeth and all the gum that should be there, all those things. You could check this short film later, but I just wanted to really quickly just show you this thing. We did some HDRIs on set, of course. I took a lot of photos of her face, took photos of her teeth with mouth open, with closed mouth, you know, so that we could see the colorizing of the teeth, so that the other teeth would match, the gum, so that the gum color would match. So I took really high resolution photos of all the actors on that day. This one was kind of really tricky as well, the BBC God only knows, mainly because we had to shoot all these actors, all these stars, this is Pharrell, in the music studio because they couldn't go to the set where we had all the musicians. So we had to shoot them separately in a really crowded place with some tracking markers. And then basically we had to combine everything. So basically we had Pharrell was shot on one layer in January, and then we had the actual set was shot 6 months later on another place. And then of course we had some chandeliers, which we shot as elements, we had some curtains, and then we stitched all of it together. And that's how it was stitched together. So we had the curtains put in, we had everything else, and then we had the chandeliers. And then we had the Pharrell was placed in there, comped in, removed all the markers and everything else. That was for all the shots. We had another shot as well, which was the same kind of deal. We had the actual orchestra, Pharrell separately, and then the roto. And then, of course, we had to match the camera moves because they were not done with motion control. They were done by hand. So they are what I called, because I'm Portuguese, this is what I call a Portuguese motion control, which is a motion control done by hand, where you basically try it and then you hope for the best. So, yes. Sometimes it doesn't work. It doesn't work all the time, but it works sometimes. All the other shots were kind of the same way. This was Elton John we shot almost a year and a half before this shot, actually. The same thing goes for Brian Wilson. We shot him in LA almost 3 months after we shot the actual orchestra. We also shot a tiger, shot a bunch of extra foliage, and then rotoscoped it all, and then stitched it all up as a huge matte painting in 3D, almost like a little forest thing going on there. Same goes for, yeah, you get the picture. You can check on my website. I have more detailed making-ofs of all these things. But I think we ran out of time, really, so I don't want to bore you more with this, but I really didn't manage to show you everything I wanted. But I hope that you guys learned a lot, and I hope you've at least, you know, my main thing today was to show you the equipment, the onset stuff, the lenses, also the applications, the onset things that we tend to use on these shoots. So I hope you guys took something out of that. The correct way of lighting green screen is really, yeah, but the correct way of lighting green screen is always to be as far away from the green screen as possible. So basically what you want to do is you want to have 2 layers of light. So you basically have the green screen as far away as possible, and you light that green screen as even as possible. And then those lights, you can even put some black blockers so they don't spill light for the front. So the light is always focused just to the back. And then your main actor should have its own independent lighting, which is only affecting him and not the green screen. So you want distance. And you want to try, if you don't have distance, you need to block lights with black sheets, with like blocking, so that you can try to minimize that. So basically you want an even green, that's what you want, and as far away as possible. As I said before, if you guys want to check out, I always film all my presentations, so eventually this presentation will be on my website, on my YouTube channel. Also it will be on BenQ's website because they are sponsoring this event. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, Hugo C. Guerra, if you want to see what I'm going to do next. Also my YouTube channel is Hugo's Desk. So eventually this presentation will end up here. It will end up on this YouTube channel in about 2 months from now. If you want to see it right away next week, then you have to pay for it. So then you have to go to Patreon and sponsor me on Patreon, and then you'll get access to the actual video before everyone else about 2 months earlier. So don't forget that if you want to support and follow Hugo's Desk. And that's it for me. Like, thank you so much for watching.